In the previous chapter of this story, we got to see a wiser and more intelligent Obito walk into Konoha, and with him, he brought death. This essentially partly became a what-if surrounding the failure of Minato. If he had failed, what would have happened? Well, probably this, because that's exactly what happened. The only difference is that we've added in the stipulation that he also trained Naruto, which is another thing that likely would have happened. Without the ability to seal the Nine Tails into the Gedo statue, Obito would have had to put it somewhere. And without the baby's ability to naturally contain the full beast, even if the baby was an Uzumaki, Obito needed to come up with a way for Naruto to have power over it. That's where the Sharingan comes in. The Sharingan naturally has dominion over the tailed beasts, as it is descended from the Rinne-Sharingan, the Eye of the Ten Tails. With only his base Sharingan, Sasuke not only entered Naruto's subconscious, but suppressed the Nine Tails. It's for this reason that I thought giving Naruto the Sharingan would be the best course of action. But then again, maybe I also wanted to draw a parallel between Naruto and Nagato. But now, as it stands, Kurama has destroyed the hidden leaf, and all that remains are the ashes and a name that the world will soon forget. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you're subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Obito stood on the pathway. He looked up at the offensively blue sky. He mused to himself that the world cared not about the lives of the people who lived upon its surface. Whether it be during war times or after a massacre, the skies tended not to give a damn. They didn't darken in response to people's emotions. They remained perpetually happy, regardless of those living below. And when they clouded up and rained, it could be on a day of extreme joy. Yes, indeed, rain could come on a sad day, but make no mistake, if the weather was sad, it had nothing to do with you. Whether you were happy or sad, it cared not, and it currently was displaying such. Obito's chakra moved darkly through his body, a symptom that foreshadowed his commitment to performing the vile action of murder. Looking down, he saw a brand new katana sitting in a brand new saya. It wasn't super flashy. Indeed, he had seen a flashier sword, one with a dragon motif, the manuki being the dragon's head, the grip being gold-colored cloth, and the blade itself steel overlaid with gold in a dragon scale pattern. A beautiful work of art, but the issue was just that. It was flashy. It drew attention to itself. It could easily become something identifiable, and considering that it cost 3 times the amount he was willing to spend, it was quickly passed over for something more practical. Something, albeit so humble, was sharp enough and strong enough to get the job done. And the best part? It was galvanized. That made it not only more durable, and also made it less likely to rust. After the last katana, he would never take another rusted blade into battle with him again. Not if he could help it. And though it worked out well that time, and Obito discovered a new affinity for a new weapon he had never thought about before, it was still not something he wished to repeat. It was by good fortune that he did not fail that mission. One might say, however, that the mark of a good shinobi had nothing to do with their tools, but what they could do with what they had, if they had anything at all. Whatever the case, Obito liked to increase his chances of success with better equipment. In the distance, he heard the sound of a palanquin being carried. This was the target, the Fire Daimyo. Currently, the old Kager was on his way to the remnants of Konoha to offer aid in the form of extra funds and a guard detail. Obito was not going to be having that. As the Daimyo rounded the corner, he was flanked by samurai and the disheveled shinobi of the crater formerly known as Konoha. Such desperate beings hidden behind faces of confidence and hope. This was an ember of hope for a return to normalcy, but normalcy was not the kind of thing that Obito needed right now. He needed distrust. He needed ill will, conquest. He needed another world war. And so he would quash their hopes now. He didn't even bother hiding. The shinobi and samurai alike made eye contact with him and began to slow the procession to a halt. The head of the security detail, a samurai with salt and pepper hair, young enough to move efficiently with strength but old enough to display wisdom, like someone who would identically fit this position, pulled his katana from his saya. "Identify yourself, stranger. You're in the path of the Fire Daimyo. Move from the path." Obito, under his mask, smiled. It was almost cute. Such a little samurai thought he was something special. The best he could do was channel chakra into his weapon, unlike Obito, who could do that and perform various types of ninjutsu. The shinobi surrounding the little box, unofficial members of the security detail, were more of a threat to him than any single samurai could be. Obito walked a little closer. The samurai raised a hand. "Stop! Stay there, we're sending someone over." One of the samurai began to run over in Obito's direction with the intent of inspecting him to see if he were any danger at all. Obito was indeed a danger. As soon as the samurai got within his range, Obito pulled the blade from his robe and carved into the man with a single stroke, slicing him in two. The palanquin's crew suddenly began to back up and head in the other direction as the guards stepped in the way, ready to defend against Obito. Obito would come at them with incredible speed. He didn't even attempt to use his blade to defend. He utilized instead Kamui to ensure that the blades passed clean through as he carved them all up something fierce. Samurai and shinobi alike fell to his blade, unable to identify or counter Kamui. He then ran up to see the palanquin and those that carried it. The box was so heavy that they had already expended their energy. They were still trying to run, but the rate at which they moved was slow. Obito caught up with them simply by walking. The bearer that was closest to Obito looked over at him and seemed like he might panic, but escaping him was a moot point. He carved down the man, causing the palanquin to stop and fall on the corner, no longer being carried. Obito systematically made his way around the box, killing the other bearers. As they all fell to the ground in a bloody mess, Obito walked to the palanquin's only door and opened it up to show the elegantly dressed daimyo sitting there, clutching a paper fan in a death grip. Obito stared at him through the mask. "Ah, the leader of the Land of Fire. It's a pleasure to meet you, Your Honor, though I wish it had been under different circumstances." "What do you want? Money? I have plenty. I'll give you as much as you want, just leave me alone." Obito let out a small sigh. "Sadly, I'm on a mission for the good of the world, and I have decided that the world would be better off without you." The man let out a panicked yelp, but was quickly silenced when Obito's katana rent him apart. Obito stepped back and flicked the blood from his blade, cleaning it off with a towel before replacing it into the saya. "Indeed, this is what will be good for the world." "War," a voice spoke. He turned to see a shinobi he thought was already dead, laying there, gurgling on his own blood. Obito stepped closer. You're not doing what's best for us. You're causing a war." Obito sighed. Consider it a growing pain. He then dipped the tip of his blade into the back of the man's skull. He turned and proceeded to teleport himself out via Kamui. And what was predicted came to pass. With Konoha's destruction and the assassination of the daimyo, the entirety of the Land of Fire was in disarray. Without proper defenses and those who could command them, the Land of Fire was quickly encroached upon. The last 4 great shinobi villages and the nations tied to them set about spoiling the Land of Fire, with their greed causing each nation to fight one another, forge alliances, and break them in order to take it all for themselves. The 4th Shinobi World War was a go, and the superpowers of the world were vying for a claim of the land, hoping to use its resources and might to increase their power. Of course, Obito saw an easier way. Simply divide the Land of Fire up evenly between the 4 warring states. But no. Greed had stepped in, and the hatred and killing had taken on a metaphysical form, and had become a living being all in its own, intent to bring ruin to the world, bloodshed and death for no reason other than greed. But it wasn't like this surprised Obito. This is what he had expected to happen after all. If it hadn't been, he wouldn't have bothered killing the daimyo. He understood this flawed world system, and he was manipulating it, and the events of the world's history from behind the scenes. All in all, Obito was a magician, and this plan was nothing more than a sleight of hand trick that would force the world to look away and value something else, while Obito took the true prize for himself. Or should we say, ourselves now. It wasn't like Obito could have done this alone. He needed to acquire aid. That was when he met with Pain again. Having been the one all those years ago to manipulate Hanzo into destroying the Akatsuki, Pain was nothing more than a creation of Obito's. It was astoundingly easy to do these things once you got a handle on it. After all, the one philosophy that Madara had trained Obito in during their time together was the concept of cause and effect. When one understood the situation enough, they could then manipulate an effect by adding a certain cause. And there was no better motivator for righteous rage than desire for vengeance. Be it against a person, a nation, or an entire world system, all one needed to do was manipulate events to bring one effect to another. If the person was not ready to fall to darkness, you simply planted the seeds until they were. But the most important thing was to remain hidden. Do not let them know you're manipulating them. They need the illusion of free will and choice. They need to feel like they're deciding for themselves what was best, not you. This is why Obito limited his interactions with the Akatsuki until the proper time had come. He had merely wanted to seed himself as a possible ally. He wanted to give himself as an option they could choose without knowing that he was truly their only choice. And now, as the world tumbled closer to war, that detestable state in which Pain's whole persona was created to destroy, Obito brought himself closer to them with an offer to help. As he met with Pain, Pain asked him why Obito thought they should consider what he says. What should they give him a position of leadership within the Akatsuki for when he's an outsider without any viable feats of trustworthiness? It was then that Obito presented them with a small boy. Pushing a child before him, the little blonde boy's eyes shined with the crimson hue of the rising sun. This boy was of the Uzumaki bloodline, and he possessed the Nine Tails. After the Kyuubi escaped and decimated the village, it fled into the wilderness for quite some time. I took it upon myself to capture it, and in doing so, placed it into an orphan child, sick and on death's door. I offered the child a new life, and ever since, it has so loyally stuck by my side, as if I were its father. Naruto turned away from Pain in fear and hugged up against Obito with a slight whimper. The appearance of the orange-haired being, face full of pins and rods, obviously terrifying the child. Obito placed a calming hand on the child's shoulder. Of course, not all of this was truth. While Naruto was a tool, Obito overblew his own merciful side to come across as more trustworthy. And even now, he was attempting to manipulate Pain by informing him of this boy's heritage as an Uzumaki, and therefore a distant cousin of Pain's. By setting up the familial connection, Obito was attempting to offer Pain something he had lost a long time ago: family. This was something that, even in his torment, Obito knew Pain could not resist. But the only way to have him was to accept Obito as a new head to the Akatsuki. The Sharingan, also being similar to Pain's, was designed to parallel Naruto to Nagato further, which would connect the two even more. The icing on the cake was to call Naruto an orphan, someone without a family. Making Naruto as relatable to Pain as possible was his goal, and he was attempting to do so in as few words as possible, attempting to focus more on his usefulness as opposed to his similarities. In doing so, Pain would never guess that Obito was pushing how similar they were. Nagato was obviously intrigued by this. After all, Obito knew that despite his bluffing, there were still many soft spots in Nagato's psyche. Parts of himself he could never deny, and that was perfect. These attributes Obito knew he could rely upon as he pushed into a deeper relationship with him and his group. Offering Naruto as a prize and an answer to all the desires Nagato had on achieving a weapon capable of ending all war on Earth. My studies have led me to believe that these tailed beasts and your Gedo statue are connected. It seems that they were once all the same object, or perhaps creature. This means that your Gedo statue was capable of utilizing all the tailed beasts together at once, their powers being brought out magnificently in a way no single beast could bring out of themselves on their own. Each beast is themselves enough to vastly change the landscape of a battlefield, or to bring a mountain to ruin. If the Gedo statue possessed all 9 of the beasts, then you will have the power to invariably alter the world without any hope of resistance. You would then become the strongest man in existence, and the strongest man leads. Pain stood there silently before speaking. Would you be willing to sacrifice the child's life for this? To remove a tailed beast from a Jinchuriki is death. Obito gave a small chuckle. The Nine Tails is so large in chakra that we could split its chakra in 2 and still have a beast that compares to the other tailed beasts. In fact, even half of its power right now might overload the Gedo statue. The child doesn't have to die, merely sacrifice half of its power, or however much you desire, and keep enough to subsist on for the rest of its life. That seems like a fair bargain, does it not? Pain continued to think about it. After deliberation, Pain had decided to grant Obito what he desired. Not that this was in any way unexpected for Obito. The truth of the matter was that, even playing it cool, Nagato had tipped his hand already when he asked about the safety of Naruto. He proved then and there that he cared for this boy's life. Anything thereafter was a foregone conclusion. With his newly acquired resources, Obito began to plan for the next round of events. Now that the world was destabilized and resources secured, the only thing left to do was take the beasts. Naruto was going to be the trump card, however. What Obito said was no lie. The Nine Tails was indeed the strongest of all tailed beasts by a long shot, and Obito believed that Naruto had the potential to utilize all the abilities at his disposal, if properly trained to do so. He'd begin training immediately, but for now he wished to let the boy acclimate. After all, a pawn that was seized by fear produced low-quality results. And so he picked Naruto up in his arms and moved to a place where they could converse alone. "Daddy, who's that man with the orange hair? Why does his face have holes in it?" Obito removed his mask to display the face that Naruto had long since grown used to. He smiled and returned to the voice that was natural to him, something more like Madara hit with a shrink ray and a pack of cigarettes. "That man is known as Pain. Like you, war changed him. But he didn't have someone like me to watch out for him, and so he became a very sad man. But he has eyes like yours. In fact, his eyes are an evolution of yours." Naruto blinked when he heard that, his own Sharingan's Tomoe giving a slight spin of suppressed excitement. "So he's like me?" Obito nodded. "In more ways than one, I assume. You two might be more closely related than you think." Naruto swallowed hard. "I don't know if I like him. He makes me feel like he wants to hurt me." Obito laughed. That's just your imagination. He's a stoic. His expressions never change, regardless of what one says. Don't take his apathetic appearance for an apathetic heart. He was concerned for your safety when I spoke of taking a portion of your tailed beast, and trust me, doing that is 100% safe. He just wanted to be sure of that before he agreed to anything. Naruto hugged onto Obito, his little body trembling ever so slightly from the experience. Obito sighed with a smile and laid back in bed, letting Naruto hold onto him tightly like a koala to a tree limb, and just stroked the back of his head as he hummed a tune his grandmother used to sing for him in times gone by. Don't be afraid, Naruto. No one's gonna hurt you. I'll see to that. The two then went to sleep, there on the bed together. The next day, however, Naruto woke up alone. He looked around and didn't see Obito, nor did he see the mask he had left on the end of the bed. Obito was gone. Naruto was alone. Daddy? He looked around the corners and didn't see anything. He said I was safe. I'm not in danger. If Daddy could leave me here alone, then it must be safe. Naruto began to slip out of the room and down the halls. As he did so, he stumbled into Sasori. Falling on his butt, Naruto would blink twice as he saw the bald, hunched figure before him that seemed to speak through a growl. Who let rats into the base? Naruto scrambled to his feet and began to run in the other direction. This time he hit someone else. He looked up and saw a man with pale blue skin, beady eyes, and pointed teeth like a shark. I'm Kisame. Pleasure to meet ya. Startled for a second time, Naruto ran once more. All the while, Kisame wondered what he had done wrong. Naruto turned around the corner and hit Konan, falling down again. For someone with the Sharingan, you aren't very attentive, she said. Naruto curled up on the floor in a panic. Another voice was heard as it drew closer. I was wrong. It's not a rat, it's an armadillo. Too small to be an armadillo. Closer to a roly-poly. Too big to be a roly-poly, the woman said. It's a hedgehog. The trio gave a small laugh at the tormented boy before finally showing a little mercy. The girl poked at him. Hey, stand up. Naruto kept his face hidden. The woman sighed. Remember, you made me do this. She took a finger and poked his ribs, to which he let a small jolt. Ah, just as I thought. Maybe I should push the envelope then. She began relentlessly tickling him until Naruto straightened out in shock. She then picked him up. There, was that so bad? She put him under his arm like a little briefcase and began moving deeper. Lord Pain, looks like we have a visitor. Standing before the flames, nothing but his silhouette and piercing lavender eyes could be seen staring back. Naruto covered his eyes as if somehow believing that refusing to acknowledge the man there might somehow make him disappear. To his horror, however, the man merely drew closer. Show me your eyes, he said to the boy. Naruto shook his head. It wasn't a question. Suddenly, Naruto's hands began moving against their will. He tried to keep them covering his face, but a strange force was pushing them apart. Naruto was forced to look at the man, face to face. Sharingan. From what I'm told, that's an Uchiha Kekkei Genkai. Yet, you're an Uzumaki. How did you get them? My dad has them. I think I got them from him. Madara said you were an orphan, so you got no genetics from him. Naruto sat silently for a moment. If he's an orphan, maybe he doesn't know where he got them from. I mean, you knew your parents Nagato, and you still don't know where you got your Rinnegan from. I know where I got my Rinnegan from. They were given to me by divine right, for the sole purpose of being this world's judge. I will determine if humanity can be saved, or if the world will be better off without us at all. This child, however, is a foundling. No such divine favor is upon him. You can't be so sure about that, Konan said, but all the same he is an Uzumaki. Surely in name only. He doesn't possess the hair of an Uzumaki, Nagato said. Konan stood there silently for a moment. She then sat the child down, who immediately fled behind her. So is this you being skeptical for good reasons? Or is this because you don't wish to grow close to someone again? You're quite bold tonight, Konan, Pain said. Perhaps too bold. She clicked her tongue. My apologies, Lord Pain. It's not my position to pry. See that it doesn't happen again, he told her. Leave that boy here with me. I will determine what he is. As you wish. Konan then left. Pain was left alone in the room with Naruto, the latter of whom was already shaking with fear. Pain began to will the fire with his hand to jump to each of the different torches. It lit the room up and provided light round about. Naruto could now see Pain well. The man looked back at the boy. There's no need to fear. I'm not going to harm you. As if saying such a thing could set Naruto at ease. What do you know of this man? Madara. Only that he takes care of me. That, and he told me not to ever talk about him to anyone without his permission. What does he have to hide? Pain asked. Naruto shook his head. That's a question for Daddy. That's what he always taught me to say. I have to say it. Nagato was silent for a time as he went about something else. It seemed like he were reading from a book. Fine. If I can't ask about your father, then I should be at least able to ask about you. How old are you? I'm 6, he answered hesitantly. And your name is Naruto, correct? Naruto Uzumaki? Naruto nodded. Pain continued. I was once known as Nagato Uzumaki. not too different from you. I was born, however, in Amegakure, as opposed to Konohagakure as you were. I too was an orphan, struggling to survive, dying of starvation until I was found by my friends who nursed me back to health. I suppose the same is true of the masked man you call a father. The difference I feel is that my friends loved and cared about me. They didn't intend to use me as a weapon against others. Your father said he put the nine tails inside of you to use you as a weapon. Are you sure that you can trust your father? My daddy's a good man. You can't say bad things about him like that. Pain looked back. I believe your father is a cheat and a liar. I don't know what games he's playing, but I don't trust him. You don't, do you? Another voice came from the darkness. Both looked over to see a masked individual move through the wall and into the room with them. You were not invited in, Pain said, and I don't recall saying you could take the boy without my permission. What a distrustful thing to do. Nagato watched him from the corner of his eye. You do not trust me, it seems. Well, that's fine. I can just leave. But I'm taking Naruto with me, just so you know. Pain was silent for a moment. Unless you wish to uphold our arrangement. Whether you trust me or not is irrelevant, so long as you uphold your side of the deal, Uzumaki. I offer you the only thing that can truly allow you to accomplish your dreams in a practical fashion. You'd be a fool to throw that away. And what makes you think we couldn't simply take him away from you, regardless of what you think? Pain asked. Obito let off a smile that could only be detected by the look of his Sharingan under the mask's single peephole. And what makes you think you could take him away? Don't get me wrong, your Rinnegan is formidable, but don't underestimate everyone else around you. That will get you killed. Obito walked over to Naruto and picked him up. I'll forget this all happened. After all, it's only fair that you be skeptical of me, but be sure not to let your distrust ruin what we've planned together for so long. He would then disappear with Naruto in a flash. The two would appear somewhere else. Where are we? Naruto asked. Obito looked back. The middle of nowhere. Nobody will be able to find us here. This will allow us the privacy to train. Naruto nodded. What do we do? Obito knelt down. We're going to use your powers that you've been blessed with. The Nine Tails, as well as your Sharingan. Both of these tools are powerful and will help you quite a bit while attempting to take tailed beasts. So, are you ready? Naruto nodded. Good. First off, sit down and begin to meditate. Naruto sat and crossed his legs. He closed his eyes. What do I meditate on? Naruto asked. Simply clear your mind. Once it's empty, begin envisioning a plane within your own head. Search for another consciousness. Naruto would begin to do so. Suddenly, he was inside of his own mindscape. He looked around and was confused, but a moment later, the boy felt a hand touch his shoulder. He then saw Obito standing there. Come on, I have something that you need to see. Together, the two of them walked deeper down the darkened corridors of Naruto's subconscious, a labyrinth of shadows. Frankly, Obito had never seen a subconscious take on this form. Normally, the form of the subconscious was a wide open space. This form made it hard to get around, even for the user. Perhaps Naruto subconsciously remembered what he was, what had happened to him, and all of his memories were locked away in a realm that was designed to protect his fragile ego from the truth. This truth would likely be who his real parents were, and worse, what Obito had done to him. This insinuated that Naruto could be a threat. Obito would have to come back through here someday when Naruto wasn't around and search his mind for these repressed memories in hopes that he might destroy them. As the two ventured deeper, they came across a cage with a rabid beast inside. What is that? Naruto said, his voice high-pitched, almost halfway to a terror-filled squeal. That is the Nine Tails, he said as Naruto hid behind him, so scared that it seemed he might cry. Obito pulled him out from behind him, however, and pushed him in front. Look at it, Naruto. Don't look away. This creature is your birthright. It's so scary. I don't want to be here anymore. Obito shushed him. The beast is harmless to you as it is right now. So long as you don't open yourself up to danger, you'll be fine. Obito pointed to the ground. See that mark on the floor there? That mark is the limit to the Nine Tails' reach. So long as you stay that far away from the cage, he cannot hurt you. Daddy, I want to leave. I don't like it, Naruto said. Obito sighed, getting tired of explaining it. Naruto, the beast is no danger to you. It's under genjutsu right now, can't you tell? Naruto looked and noticed that the beast had tomoe around its iris. Obito knelt down. That beast has been under genjutsu for as long as it's been inside of you. I cast it under as soon as I sealed it, and your Sharingan have been subconsciously keeping it that way this whole time. It seems one of your Mangekyo Sharingan possesses a powerful genjutsu. It's completely at your mercy. Now, command it to do something. Like what? Naruto asked. Command it to lift its arm. Naruto did, and the beast obliged. Naruto is shocked. I don't understand. Obito hugged the boy tightly like a proud parent. You soon will. We'll begin training this soon. So long as the beast remains completely under your control, it is your plaything. Naruto nodded. Coming out of Naruto's mental plane, Obito then told him this. You also possess a Mangekyo Sharingan, much like mine. Obito showed Naruto his Sharingan before evolving it into a Mangekyo. If you can awaken it, you might possess techniques that'll help you on your missions. How do I awaken it? Naruto asked. Obito had to think about this for a moment. It had become second nature to him. He wasn't sure how to explain it. It's kind of a mental thing. You've got to focus on something that makes you upset, something that makes you angry or scared, or fills you full of intense emotions. And when you have, will it to open. Make the tomoe spin and find what feels right. It'll come naturally after you do it a few times. Naruto attempted to do what he was told. He didn't have any situations that filled him full of intense emotions because he was only 6 and mostly sheltered. So he created a scenario in his head that made him want to cry. He then began spinning the Sharingan around over and over. Every time it went by, he felt something different. There was more to the eye than just the tomoe they could see. As he closed his eyes, he willed that the tomoe move toward the iris while willing the irises to move toward the tomoe. As he opened his eyes, he suddenly would have awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. You did it, Naruto! You awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan! Naruto began jumping up and down for joy. Yes, I did it! I did it! He then settled down and began to think through his confusion. What do I do now? Obito thought about it. We test you for your techniques. Each eye possesses a technique that you have a natural affinity for. They come naturally to us. He set up a training dummy. Alright, let's start with your left eye. Begin attempting to use the technique that it comes with. Naruto nodded. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath and began to summon up his technique. Suddenly, as he opened his left eye, crimson chains made of red chakra fired from his Sharingan and gripped onto the dummy, beginning to pull it toward him. As it flew toward Naruto, Obito was ready to step in and protect him until suddenly, the dummy disappeared. Obito was shocked. He had seen the whole thing happen. A portal to the Kamui realm had opened, but Obito hadn't put it there. It seemed that these chains that shot forth from his eye could pull things into the Kamui realm, which made this technique a variant of Obito's. He titled it Binding Kamui. It worked like Kamui, but seemed to have a purpose more for sealing, which, even though these eyes were not originally Naruto's, seemed to match well with his Uzumaki blood, as this technique reminded him of a blend between the adamantine chains and Kamui. This was interesting, but the question was, what was the secondary ability? He told Naruto to try and utilize his right eye's ability on the squirrel that was nearby. Naruto attempted to and managed to cast a perfect genjutsu over the squirrel. This is like the Tsukiyomi, but far more powerful. This is a supreme Tsukiyomi. Its potency is like that of the infinite Tsukiyomi, but only on one person. Unbreakable. Everlasting. Suddenly, Naruto doubled over in pain as he cried out. Obito, in fear, knelt down beside him. Naruto, what's wrong? It hurts. What hurts? Obito asked. Everything. Every cell in my body feels like it's going to explode. Suddenly, a crimson red chakra covered him as various tails appeared from behind. Obito is shocked. The Nine Tails is escaping? The beast rushed at Obito, but Obito used his Kamui to become intangible. He gripped one of the tails and swung it into a tree. The beast let out a roar as it came at him again. It was still shaped like Naruto, but the crimson chakra surrounding him insinuated that it was the version 2 chakra cloak that the Jinchuriki could take. As Obito looked down though, he realized that his gloves were stained with blood. He wondered if he had been wounded, but he was certain that he hadn't been. He didn't feel any pain. He then noticed that there was a slight steam coming from the beast. A red steam. This is Naruto's blood. The form's shredding him to pieces. Obito came in again, ready to cast the beast under genjutsu, but it was utilizing Naruto's Sharingan to deflect it. It was then that Obito realized the truth. If the beast had access to Naruto's Sharingan, then it had access to all of his abilities. This meant that he needed to avoid eye contact as much as he could to ensure that he was not caught with the Supreme Tsukiyomi. He tried to get close using his Kamui. He managed to dodge a couple tailed beast bombs, but as he came at him, he was struck by the crimson chains from Naruto's right eye. Obito was thrown back into a tree. He was shocked to have been struck, but it hit him then that Naruto was utilizing a form of Kamui, which meant that this attack was extra dimensional. This meant that his chains could follow Obito into the Kamui realm and remove the advantage of his tangibility. Obito removed his mask. He displayed a second Mangekyo Sharingan that was not the same as the one in his right socket. It had a completely different design, and this meant it had a different ability as well. But what could the ability be? Obito opened his eye and suddenly the beast was struck by 100 blades, invisible blades, or so it had seemed. Obito chose this ability due to its complementary nature to his Kamui. What this technique did was allow Obito to weaponize space-time ninjutsu and fold the dimensions of space-time on top of each other. The concept was that he was taking two portals that led to each other and pressing them so close together that there was no longer any space between them. In fact, the technique caused each portal to slightly bow into the other, generating a negative space that seemed to create an anti-space that he could then use to cut. This cut could negate durability, as anything that could not transcend space-time was subject to it. Naruto managed to use his Binding Kamui to partly fend off some of these attacks, but they were coming in so fast that he couldn't defend against them all. Obito would press the attack until the beast fell forward. He would rush to the beast and cast it under genjutsu. After doing so, the beast retracted into Naruto, leaving the boy burned and covered in lacerations. Obito would teleport him to the mountain's graveyard, where he'd inject him with some more of Hashirama Senju's cells to help him heal. As the regeneration began to take place, Naruto would wake up. What happened? Obito sighed in relief. You tried to utilize your genjutsu technique, but it seems that this is the genjutsu keeping the Nine Tails at bay within you. When you cast it on something else, it freed the Nine Tails. I suppose that it only works on one person at a time. I would recommend only using it on the Nine Tails, elsewise I believe the beast will escape. Naruto grew a little nervous. Obito shook his head and pat Naruto gently on the cheek. It's okay. We know how to avoid that technique now. From here on, we'll just focus on using the binding Kamui. Does that sound fair? Naruto nodded. Obito sighed again. For now, get some rest. We'll continue training tomorrow. And this is where I plan to call it quits for the day. I hope you all enjoyed this chapter. By far, my favorite part was creating these Mangekyo Sharingan techniques. Sadly, I never had the chance to come up with a name for the negative space technique that Obito's other Mangekyo used. I just didn't have time to figure that one out, but I tell you what, I'll leave that up to you to decide. You all come up with a name for the technique. Remember, Mangekyo techniques have a naming convention based on Shinto deities or Japanese divinity in general. Try to stick with that theme if you can and come up with a cool name for it. Be sure to explain why your name is cool, and then I'll think about it. Whoever comes up with the coolest name, in my opinion, will get to see their technique name used the next time Obito displays the ability, so start brainstorming. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified when more videos like this drop, and until next time, peace out.